Punk churches, bro peas, more guap, upper heads, draper never grad CZ. Talk about me, I don't care. I might invest like Roger there. Equity, 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 equity. I want more equity. It's the future of the internet. Blockchain. Roger saw it in the early days. Visionary. Bitcoin.com.
You come to Bitcoin who you are. You know, if you're somebody who's into education and you're a professor and into monetary history, you write a book like Safedine Amoose. If you're somebody like Michael Saylor, who is in the software business in Virginia with who's kind of close to the center of power in DC, who does, I would imagine, some contracting work for the government, you would have some comments about the U.S. government. Michael Saylor has also said he sees Bitcoin as being world reserve asset and the U.S. dollar as being world reserve currency. Now I never understood that argument. I don't think that argument makes any sense. Nobody who's looked at it agrees with him on that. And that's not going to be the case whatsoever. The dollar is completely being destroyed. It's being flushed down the toilet. The price is at a high relative to the last few years of performance, but usage amongst global economies is dropping. It's under 60%. It'll soon be under 50%. And we've seen a major sea change in the last few months, Daniela, because we went from a 40-year bull market in the bond market and a 40-year bull market in the, let's call it the Reagan-Thatcher era of deregulation and financialization. We are now in a new era, which is going to be driven by commodities, right? Russia basically called time on the era of financialization, and we're now on a commodity-based global economy. Russia, the ruble is reflecting that. It's trading at some highs, some recent highs, as commodities take center stage. And the ultimate commodity, the commodity that Paul Tudor Jones called the fastest horse in the race, is Bitcoin. And it'll outperform all other commodities and all other securities and remain as the best performing asset for the next 10 years. But I don't see the US dollar, as Michael Saylor argues. I don't buy that argument whatsoever. So I'm not surprising that he would have a favorable disposition toward comments coming out of the U.S. government. I don't see that as being important or relevant either in any case, but he's a guy who supports dollar as world reserve currency. So, I mean, if it's his MO, that's fine. But, you know, I don't agree with it. And the Bitcoin is not in any way tied to any government's position toward it. Governments have only one decision: either start mining and hoarding Bitcoin or become irrelevant.
Okay. So let's just stop. You mentioned Russia, so let's go there a second. And I want to give you kudos because 2 years ago, at my former outlet, you had called out saying that you could see Russia working on linking the price of the ruble to gold and other commodities. And that's basically what we're seeing today. They say they're working on it, but as you know, when we hear news reports that they're working on it, it usually means it's already done. What does this really mean? What does it imply? How big is the impact?
The impact is huge. As I've just been saying, the transition from financialization to commodification is underway. So Russia is demanding payment for gas in rubles. And the EU was reluctant at first, and they've said, well, we're going to do a run around this particular stipulation by going through some intermediaries, so we're not really doing it in rubles. But now they're saying, actually, we're just going to pay in rubles. And this is what giving a lot of strength to the ruble. And so Russia is now talking about tying the ruble to gold, having a gold-backed ruble. And I also talked about China at that time. I think China and Russia, Iran, and the other BRIC nations are all in a good position now going forward. They're all commodity based. And this idea of tying currencies to gold will become much more talked about in the near future. Russia's obviously come out and said it now. China is still, I think, going to come on board. We could see, a joint effort to tie those currencies to gold. So this is what's happening in the gold market. And It's not a good look for the U.S. dollar.
So let me ask you this. You and I both know Russia has been buying gold all these years. Have they been preparing for this exact moment?
Absolutely. Look. I mean, what I find remarkable is that Russia, for the last 20 years, has communicated in a very open and transparent way what they're doing, why they're buying gold, their position toward NATO, their position toward various geopolitical events that are going on. They have not been hiding their thoughts at all. And now, after getting to the point where they felt that their message wasn't getting across, we now have entered a new era, and there's a conflict in Eurasia. And but this should not be a surprise to anybody. But what's remarkable is that the response of those who are clinging to the world of financialization still think that they're going to print their way out of this problem, right? So the central banks still think that, you know what, we just need to print more money. People are saying, but they don't understand that actually that just causes the inflation that's empowering Russia. The tactic from the Russian point of view, if I can put myself in the mind of the strategists in Russia, is that, look, everybody against Russia is going to fight us by printing money, which only makes our commodities worth more in value. It makes the ruble stronger. So bring it on.
So, Max, how far away are we from the demise of seeing, the U.S. dollar no longer the reserve currency of the world? And what replaces it? Is it a basket backed by commodities? Or what does it look like for you?
Right. So you go from a unipolar U.S. dollar reserve currency to a multipolar world with a few different currencies out there. So you have the dollar, which will be a fading currency. You have a gold-backed ruble, which is going to be aligned with China, Iran, Brazil, the BRIC nations. And then you have Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is being adopted by countries. We see that now in Central America with El Salvador. And we can talk about this new fund we're starting, by the way, in El Salvador called El Zonte Capital. You can get information about it if you do an email to hello@elzontecapital.com. And we'll see other regions in Central America and Latin America begin to adopt Bitcoin. And now we see more action in Africa. There's a country in Africa today that just announced they're making Bitcoin legal tender. So that will be a big theme in Africa. Those countries looking to leapfrog the entire fiat money system and banking system and just want to just leap into the 21st century, that they can just go to a Bitcoin standard and bypass all this malarkey with central banks and fiat money and all the bureaucrats. They can just go to a hard money Bitcoin standard and be immediately participating in the economics of the 21st century. So we're going to see that. So those are the three developments as the U.S. dollar fades away. You get a gold-backed currency in those countries that have been aggressively buying gold for decades, principally Russia, China. And then you have Bitcoin, which is really the kind of the breakout surprise hard money transformative currency in the world, and that has its own